Hi, welcome to this discovery session. We're here to discuss our new approach to English composition at Ashford University. English composition is a core competency in the Division of General Education, and all students are required to complete 6 units in written communication. A lot of students complete English 121 and English 122 to complete this competency requirement, although we do have a large number of students who transfer credits, either 3 credits or all 6 units that are required in this competency. My name is Aimee Garten, and I am lead faculty for English 122, English Composition 2. And I've been with Ashford University since 2010. I teach a variety of courses, primarily in the Division of General Education, and primarily writing courses, including English 122.
Hi everyone, my name is Heather Auger. I am the English 121 lead faculty. English 121 is Composition 1. It's typically the first English writing course that students take here at Ashford. I've been teaching with Ashford since 2012. I teach primarily the English composition courses, literature courses here and there, and also some of the Gen Ed entry level courses. Earlier this year, English 121 went through a full revision with new CLOs, and we have some really exciting highlights that we'd like to share with you today. We looked at English 121 and thought the best way to help students with the writing process and to feel comfortable with their writing is to take them step by step through that writing process. The courses span 5 weeks, and so each week of the course focuses on one step of the writing process. Week 1 is brainstorming, week 2 is outlining, week 3 is rough draft, week 4 is revising, and then week 5, they are still doing additional revision, but we've also made it a way to transition them into their future courses, Gen 103 and English 122, and we help them do some library research. The course focuses on active reading, using the SQ3R reading and study method to go through the weekly readings, but also help them with their essay development and connection to the writing process. One of the new exciting additions that we have are writing lab quizzes. And finally, we round out the course with helping prepare students for 122. What I will do now is share my screen and walk you through the master course. One major change from the previous version is we focus just on one discussion board a week, with the exception of week 5. But that discussion board requires students to read an outside source, connect with it, talk about the main topic that the author is going through, and have students use that SQ3R method to then take what they're reading and transfer it over to the writing process and essay development. So you'll notice on like week 1 has one discussion, week 2, week 3. In week 1, the poster introduction is starts with them and how they relate to brainstorming, their connection to brainstorming, because that's the first part of the writing process. And then the weekly writing lab for that week is also about brainstorming. And so we have 4 writing labs in week 1, 2, 3, and 4. There is not one in week 5. But each of these writing lab quizzes connects students to that stage of the writing process. So it really emphasizes what they're learning that week. The standardized guidance is also new. I'll just click on week 1. Instructors are still encouraged to write their own guidance, but for those who don't want to or don't have time, we have instructor guidance already written for students. That was something that was not in the previous course, and we have it here now, and it really emphasizes the main points about what students are focusing on that week. It helps them walk through it step by step. And let me click on one of the writing labs for you real quick. Sorry, I went the long way. There we go. So this is the brainstorming writing quiz. And they're interactive quizzes. So wait for it to load, excuse me. So it's either drag and drop or click. The students have to interact with it in some way, and it just emphasizes what they've learned. Oh, this one isn't working. Okay, here we go. Click on each line of the writing process, directions. They have to, when this pops up, it's all scrambled, and they have to, move it around and put it in the order it belongs. So it's just a fun way for those learners that are more visual learners to connect with what they're learning. And then week 5 is how we have scaffolded our courses. So Aimee Garten is the 122 lead. And when we were working on this revision, we decided to really connect these two classes because previously there was a big jump between 121 and 122. And in between there, students are supposed to take Gen 103, which is information literacy. And so what we've done is created the reflection and library research discussion. And we worked with the library. They have provided us some digital library, keywords are critical, and how to find it, videos and tutorials for students. And it's a really easy library search for them to get used to the library, get used to researching topics that relate to their essay. In this particular assignment, the essay that they've been working on for the whole 5 weeks, they have to think about what that essay is about and the main idea surrounding their thesis, and then find a library essay, outside source that speaks to their essay and their thesis. And so they don't have to incorporate it in their final paper. That's not necessarily required, but they can. But it's just a way to get them comfortable with that and to kind of walk them to that next step of research, because 121 is heavily focused on research. And so once students leave 121 with this foundation of writing, because that's what we want for them, foundation of writing, the writing process, they're comfortable with that writing process. They've practiced it numerous times throughout the 5 weeks. Now they're ready for 122. So let me switch it back over to my colleague. There you go, Aimee. You can share the PowerPoint again.
Great. Thank you so much, Heather. As Heather mentioned, we definitely wanted to build these courses together and essentially give students who have never taken a writing course before, who aren't transferring any credits, a very comprehensive first-year writing program experience by working on course learning outcome CLOs together so that they build across the two courses. But then also we have to acknowledge that students don't take these two classes back to back. As Heather mentioned, a lot of students take Gen 103 in between, and that's the information literacy course. But ultimately, students could take courses in any order, depending on what's going on in their lives, what their advisor has advised them to do, questions as to whether things transferred or not. There's just a lot of reasons why students don't take them back to back. And so that was a little bit of a challenge. We also have students who maybe transferred in credits, so they don't take English 121. They do need to take English 122. So these were all things in mind as we went through and developed this revised version of English 122, which launched a few weeks after the new version of English 121. So in our second course, English 122, we still wanted to give students another chance to really hone in on the process. And the writing process is something that wasn't always taught with clear intention and direction before. It was sort of assumed that students would pick up and develop a writing process as you had them complete, sort of busy work, as we used to call it. But in research in our industry and in our discipline has shown, no, we really need to teach the process, because once a student has the process, then they feel free and comfortable and have that confidence to put pen to paper hands on keyboard and actually write. So we wanted to build on that was established in English 121, and then also add an element of having a little bit more motivation to write by focusing on purpose. Why in the world would we write, and why would anyone care? And that's sort of a key anytime we talk about communication, even written communication. With that, we broke down the process into the 5-week course, again, working on one big project. But then we also added in elements of finding the purpose. So in week 1, with our brainstorming, we want them to find a purpose, a reason that's meaningful to them and their community, whatever that community may be, why they should research something and put so much effort into finding scholarly research about an issue. In week 2, we want them to be able to start taking what they're learning from research and build an argument. And then in the process, developing an outline, outlining that argument into a form that will eventually become an essay. In week 3, we really want to talk about ethics and integrity in multiple ways, including some interesting activities I'll show you in a moment. And that's when they write a rough draft. In week 4, of course, we want them to revise, but we're also having them do a lot of collaboration activities. And we really want them to focus in on finding clarity by acknowledging and understanding the reader, what their audience is experiencing from their draft. And then in week 5, we want them to build up some pride in a job well done and understanding that when you work hard, you reap some rewards out of it. And while also talking about editing, those final steps that a lot of students, I was this way as an undergrad, I'm sure most of you were too, not editing and not proofreading, just submitting your work, right? So we're talking about why that actually matters and how those final steps can give you something you can be really proud of. So in addition to all of this, it's really, while it's focused on getting students prepared for writing college papers, this is really all about being able to write successfully in future courses. We also want them to understand that it has meaning beyond this classroom. And that it matters in their discipline, it matters in their career, and then it matters in their personal life. We also want to make sure that they're prepared for future courses, not just by building some skills in this class, but also having the knowledge to troubleshoot issues in the future. And finally, also to use all of the tools that Ashford provides to them, both now and then they're ready to use them in the future. And finally, we want them to get really comfortable, oops, sorry, I clicked the wrong place, using a style guide, and it can be any style guide. Our students do use APA primarily in their undergraduate courses, so that's the style guide we use. But we're not focused in on saying that learning and memorizing APA is the skill you need to learn. The skill our students need to learn is to know how to use a style guide. So this is the master course shell. I'll just show you a few highlights and interesting things that our students go through here in this new version of English 122. So it starts off, as Heather mentioned, the poster introduction is also tied to coursework. It's not sort of a throwaway, just copy and paste what you put in your other classes discussion. It's a true discussion, just like we do in English 121, that starts them off. And I'll show you a little bit of it because we wanted to get students feeling comfortable citing work from the beginning, knowing that they haven't done it much. So we do hold their hand just a little bit. In each discussion, we have a text box here that shows the link to the style guide materials in the Writing Center, an example of how to cite the actual source that they've read and are talking about in this discussion. So by showing them how to do it first, it's a little bit like training wheels. Once they get the hang of it, then we know we can take our hands off, take the training wheels off, and they can do it themselves. So this is something we hadn't done before. We hadn't really given students a lot of models of the actual source they're using and how to cite it. We give them arbitrary models, but sometimes it helps to just give them what they need, and now they can copy and use it. So beginning from poster introduction, they read an award-winning student essay about how writing actually matters in the world and in the community you're in. And we ask students to share the communities that they're in based on that. So we build on that. In the 1 week full discussion, regular discussion, where now we ask them to read a really important essay that Langston Hughes actually wrote. So it's not a poem, it's an essay he wrote about his experience as a social poet and writing for a particular community in need and the ramifications of that and the consequences of that, and then the joys and rewards of it. It's a beautiful piece if you haven't read it before. My Adventures as a Social Poet is the name of it. So we have students read that essay, and then we have them talk again about the community that they introduced and how they feel compelled to address an issue in that community. The way Langston Hughes felt compelled to continue to write about issues in his African American, at that time, Black community in the 1930s and 40s, rather than writing poetry about roses and beautiful things, as he mentioned. So we're really sparking some critical thinking that had been maybe missing in prior curriculum. We want to challenge students. We want students to get uncomfortable once in a while. That's where a lot of really good learning can come from. But most of all, in these discussions, we wanted to have true, authentic discussions. We didn't want to continue the sort of practice of students show up late Thursday night, throw some stuff down, then they show up late Monday night and throw some stuff down, and there's no actual conversation happening. To our very happy, pleasant surprise, it's working, and students are really engaging in these discussions. In addition, we didn't do a word count minimum on these discussions. Basically, if they address all parts of the discussion, they were going to write far more words than any minimum we were going to put on there. So we thought, let's stop focusing on the things that don't matter, like how many words you use, and let's focus on what those words mean. So that is a change in perspective that's been successful. And we also tell students they need to interact with at least 3 classmates in these discussions, and they need to be active on at least 3 different days. Some students do that, some students don't. Most students by the end of the class figure it out, and we end up having some really good discussions. So while this maybe doesn't on the surface seem like it's a writing exercise, it is. This is again back to the process of brainstorming and figuring out a topic that matters to them after reading about Langston Hughes and how he found topics that matter to him. So that is the sort of approach we are taking in discussions. We also have a different way of approaching the idea of bias in writing. And that happens in week 3, where we have students go to the implicit bias test, which is conducted through Harvard University. It's an ongoing research project. So we have them learn a little bit about the researcher, and then we have them go to Project Implicit and take it. If you haven't done this before, anyone's invited to. I recommend everyone should. If you just go to this Go button here, you get a whole menu of different implicit association tests. And it's a lot of fun, I think. Students are very challenged by this activity because they may get results that indicate they have a particular implicit bias, and they wholeheartedly reject that they have that bias. And that opens up a conversation of, well, what does implicit mean and unconscious? And it doesn't mean you're a bad person. And let's remember that all humans have these bias issues. And then we get to talk about how we can look for them and spot a bias in information that they're reading. And then applying it to the rough draft they're writing this week, how can you make sure that your bias is not slipping into your argument, since what we're writing here is an objective research-based argument, not an opinion piece. So this opens up a really strong conversation and sometimes challenging conversation, but extraordinarily rewarding conversation. And again, it's so much critical thinking. You can just see the light bulbs coming on. So we do ask students, of course, to cite their work again, and we give them some help with that. And this sparks a lot of really great conversation. So another thing that's unusual in this class is that we don't have a standard textbook in this course. We give students a handbook. So it's more of a guidebook for writing, and we ask them to use it throughout class. And we offer them quite a few resources at the end of each chapter, sample student papers, sample types of assignments, and then also web resources, tools on the market, apps that they can add and plugins to Microsoft Word, TED Talks, or other interviews with well-respected writers who talk about process and purpose. And we talk about those in discussions as well. And that's been, really quite a lovely experience for all involved, I think. And then the other thing we do is we have homework. So homework in English 122 is a research notebook. And it's something, again, that's detailed out in their handbook, their textbook for the course. And then as they go through class, they keep a notebook. And I'll show it to you really quickly. We give students a Microsoft Word version, or we give them a PDF version. Looks like this. So I won't download the whole thing in Word, but we'll see if the preview pops up. But we give them the option to complete it online and save, or not online, but in Word or Adobe, and then save it as a file. Or they can print it out and complete it by hand. We just let them know if you write it by hand, you're going to have to scan it all in and submit it as a file to be graded. It's probably not going to load just because I want to show it to you right now. So let me see. There it goes. Okay. So it's a very basic pages of tables. We have students complete different sections each week and continue to work on it. So we ask them to share their process throughout this and to keep notes. And our goal is that students will like this and keep it and use it in their future classes. That's absolutely the goal. It gives them a worksheet for developing a research question on their topic and then setting loose in the library to find that information. We give them a worksheet on generating keywords, finding keywords from different sources. And again, all this information is in their handbook, so the instructions always direct them to the exact section in the handbook they need to be successful. And then we definitely want to make sure that they're keeping really good research notes. So the first thing we do is have them write out their citation of any source that they find. And then we ask them to write out the results of running a CRAP test. So if you're not familiar with CRAP test, it is the information literacy evaluation tool that's been developed in library science discipline. We use it quite a bit in English and rhetoric as well, composition. So we ask students to evaluate the currency, the relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose of that source. And if it doesn't pass any of those sections, move on. That's not a good source for this project, find another one. So we give them a lot of pages to do that, and then some summative work at the end. So they keep this document for 4 weeks, and they submit it to us at the end of week 4. And most students do a great job with it. And you can really see the correlation between those students who are using the textbook, the handbook, and this homework, and really successful writing, and the students who don't. It's a very clear distinction in their writing, who is going through the effort and who is not. So we're definitely very communicative with students that they need to put effort in to get effort out. And finally, I did also want to share with you a new quiz structure here. We only have 2 quizzes now in this class, and they are essay quizzes, and we basically refer to them as an instructor meetup. We wanted students to have more one-on-one interaction with their instructors, not just with waypoint feedback on the assignments, but throughout the process. So we have students share what they've been doing in their quiz in class with the instructor, and they're all open-ended questions. So there's some ranking questions, and then there's open-ended questions. So for example, in week 1, they tell the instructor how confident they are in their research skills and their writing skills and in their time management skills. And that gives the instructor an opportunity to respond back with some encouragement if they don't feel comfortable, with some ideas of things to do. So it's that nice one-on-one moment. We also have students share what their greatest strength will be in this class, and then what they think their greatest challenge is. Again, it opens a dialogue, a one-on-one office hours type moment between the student and their instructor. And then finally, we have them do things like share where they are in the process. So in week 1, we have them share what their broad topic is, and then their narrowed topic and their research question. And the instructor can either approve it, great job, 100%, or they can say, we're not quite there yet, here's what we need to do, and give them that quick turnaround feedback and interaction. So we're very excited that students now have this experience with their instructor at different intervals in class, and not just, waiting 6 days for that assignment to come back. So that is where we have come and where we are going with the English 122 revision. And the final paper in this course is a little bit similar to what they've always done for us, a 5 to 7 page research paper. We increased the research requirement. They have to have at least 8 sources, because we had students just writing a body paragraph that summarized one source, and that was, the extent of their development. So by having more than one source per page, we're getting more robust and more accurate arguments that students are writing. We also have designated that at least 5 have to come from the library and must be scholarly. And we're helping students understand the difference between, other credible sources and what scholarly really, truly, actually means. So that is where we are with our English 122 revisions. So I'm just going to switch over to the other screen. In just a moment, I have to push a button. Pushing buttons gets hard.
And Aimee, while you were talking, I realized I neglected 2 things about 121, so I'll just put those in there real quick. The essay for 121 is a critical response essay. It's not fully argumentative essay, but it starts to lean towards that. So that's another way to help transition students to 122. And 121 also has an essay quiz in week 4 that operate as like office hours for the instructor. So very similar to 122, where students get to talk about what's going well, what are they struggling with, and we've had some great success with that. If you are interested in finding out more information about our classes, or if you have any questions, head on over to the CETL. We have our own page on there, English Composition Faculty Lounge. There's the website, but if you also just go to the CETL and click on the drop-down menu for Division of Gen Ed, you can find us there. Each of our courses, 121, 122, have their own page with their own resources and saved documents that you can look at. And there's also a frequently asked questions area and open forum if you'd like to ask any questions. And you could also email Aimee and I if the information that you're seeking is not on the CETL. So I think that's it. Oh, and thank you for your time today. When you have a moment, please read our mission that the Division of Gen Ed has, as well as our vision statement for the Division of Gen Ed. It's something that we collaboratively worked on as a whole ComArts group and Division of Ed group.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.